put David on one of the sister FM stations here pretty soon. Give that guy a contract or can play a gig. Maybe you should play our first birthday party.
Hey, that'd be great, wouldn't it?
Yeah. It's not karaoke, though. You can stand up there.
I'll bring my guitar. I have a guitar. I'll bring the guitar, and I'll do something. It'll be country, but it will be something. It will be fun.
Totally. Brashenomics country party.
An interesting feel.
I think it would be really a lot of fun. You know, if I went out and got a bunch of my friends to move me at this stage in my life,
it would be a lot more than beer and pizza.
You know, it would be filet mignon, Dom Perignon, and probably 3 weeks of medical bills in the hospital.
That's what I was thinking. What's the Advil bill on all of that, huh?
So, you know what? If you're quite a ways out of college, hire professionals.
I tend to agree. I remember the first time, the first few moves out of college, we did it ourselves. When you hire a professional to move, and nothing against what Hank is saying other than my personal standpoint, it is literally like, can you just do that? And they get these, group team of 4 that come in and they just do it. Where you and your buddies like, all right, I got 1 foot down the stairs. Don't move.
Yeah, exactly.
So
exactly, yeah.
At least paying your buddies to at least pack the stuff off would take off half that bill, he said. So there you go.
Yeah, and then maybe move on a Tuesday more than.
But when you do that, you have no insurance if the stuff breaks. In fact, you barely have insurance anyway because they pay you per pound. So a pair of $200 shoes, how much do they weigh? They don't weigh a pound, so you get about 8 cents.
Especially if like those Nike Frees right now.
Oh,
which
yeah.
I am like the biggest fan of these shoes because they feel like little pillows.
Are you wearing them now?
No, I gotta. No. Tomorrow.
David,
so let's get back on track here, if you'd like to. But, so moving is something that when people buy houses, that is another part of the process. And it does seem that when people decide to buy a house, there's so many parts of the process, and you really do have to go in order.
You do.
I mean, you can't move.
You can't move before you buy something.
That's true, but it's a process. I mean, and that's something when you start working on financing or whatnot, it's another one of those costs that you have to be conscious of. Should you not have enough money for beer and pizza to have everybody help move you, this is another cost that you have to think about, which is another important part about buying a house and understanding what financing is available.
Well, yeah, and it's also hooking up all the utilities, getting the meters read, and, getting insurance transferred over, doing change of address cards. I mean, there's a zillion things you have to do when you move.
And certainly
getting a new driver's license sometimes even.
It's funny. On the driver's license note, I went and they said I didn't need a new one when I moved like 4 years ago. They said, well, we just change it, but unless you can keep your old one or just pay $15 and we'll register it.
Oh, okay. My daughter lost her, she was going to college in Los Angeles and she lost her purse and lost her driver's license. And I told her, I said, honey, you need to have a driver's license. You need to have ID. So she called and talked to the state of Washington, and they said, well, you can't do it. And so she called me back and said, well, I can't do it. I said, yeah, you can. Just call them and tell them you need to have ID. So they sent her. I was down. I took her to dinner a couple of weeks ago. When I was down at the desert, we drove over to L.A., and she showed me her driver's license. And they sent her, the state of Washington sent her a driver's license with no picture on it, and where the picture is stamped on their valid identification. I found that odd. And we're still not on the subject.
It's okay. This is fun. We're having fun. So, David, when people, so again, the process of moving. People want to go buy houses right now. It's a process, and understanding what's important to you, again, is a key topic.
Well, and when I work with my clients, I have a checklist of all this stuff, and that is actually moving is actually at the end of the checklist. And I have a mover that I recommend really highly, and I give them the name, and they call them, and 99.9% of everybody that's used them just raves about them. They just do a great job. It's not a big outfit. It's not like Student Movers, but it's a local family-owned place, and they've got young, strong guys, and they move fast, and they're inexpensive. I mean, you could move.
$3,000 seemed like a lot, didn't it?
It cost me $3,000, and I filled up the entire moving van when I moved to Chicago.
Yeah, I felt like 3,000 for 30 miles seemed like
yeah. So I mean, maybe 750.
Yeah. So then, what are some of those other big pieces of the puzzle? Then, I mean, before you start moving, before you do that, the first step is really understanding what's important to you about that house, isn't it?
I think it's beyond that. I think it's understanding what's important to you about your life and how you want to live it and where you see it going down the road. How long are you going to be there? Are you going to be there? Are you going to be there for 5 years? Going to be there for 10 years? Now, this is really an interesting concept that I talk to my clients about. The first house you buy is going to have a huge impact on the second house you buy, and that's going to have a huge impact on the third house you buy, and your third house is usually the house that you're going to be in the longest. And if you don't make a good decision on the first house and buy it in the right place, at the right time, at the right price, then it makes it very difficult to get as much cash as you need out of that when you go to sell it, to buy the next house to get into to go from Ballard to Magnolia to Queen Anne. If you're going to do that, you've got to be smart. You can't buy in Lake City and then expect that you're going to get all this equity out of it to move to Queen Anne, because Queen Anne's going to go up faster than Lake City's going to go up in prices.
And I think Hank made some really good points in that same breath. You have to do things right, and you have to do them right for you.
Yeah.
So if, you don't have friends who are going to go buy, do this things for beer and pizza, then you can actually save money by moving on a Tuesday or Thursday. It's kind of the same thing as you're talking about. If you don't plan to do it right the first time, then down the road, you may end up just not in the position you want to be in.
Yeah, and earlier...
Or the neighborhood, for that matter.
And earlier you talked about questions, and sometimes you don't even know what the questions are. And the answers are always simple. It's the questions that are difficult. So until you really get into the process and you have somebody take you through the process, you don't even know what your questions are until you get in deep into the process to really understand, oh, you know what? That's what's really important to me. I thought this was important to me. But when I see the whole picture and I see it from a different perspective, this is more important. School districts is really important to a lot of people. They want to be in a good school district. So if you want to be in Mercer Island, then you have a choice to live in a type of house. If you're under 800,000, or if you're over 800,000, then you can live in the really nice houses that have views. And so you look at that and what I can buy for 600,000 in Mercer Island, maybe they don't want to live there. So, these are really, there's so many variables.
We're here with David Bell, our resident RE/MAX Hall of Famer, and, navigating through those variables is really what experience in a real estate agent will do for people, isn't it?
Well,
so you're not mesmerized by the fresh paint or the new bark or the new, or the new shrubs that have been planted.
A lot of people are. Good point. A lot of people are. They really look and see, oh my God, this thing is just really cool. It's just, it really looks good. It really feels warm and really cozy. And I was talking about clients on the earlier segment. They called me and said, gee, we went to an open house and we really loved it and we really want you to go see it. So I took them out there, and actually I looked it up online and went, oh, this is going to be a great learning experience. So they really loved this place, and I took them out there and I showed them why they should never, ever buy a house like that. It was built so poorly. It looked pretty, it looked kind of cool, but it was really poor construction. And just, just on slab, and the pipes were old, and just there were so many things wrong with it. It was great. And they didn't see that because they only saw the style of the house. They only saw the inside, and it had open beams, and it had, some neat stuff.
because the drywall had fallen.
Yeah, basically.
So they left them open.
Yeah, it was a really awful house.
I think for a first-time home buyer, that might be pretty common, though, right? They don't know what to focus on. It's like, this looks pretty. It's in the right neighborhood, and it's more the aesthetic, and that's it.
Yeah, I had clients a long time ago ask me why it was important that I thought they should buy a house that had good bones, that was built well. And the reason for that is that if you buy a home that is built well, it lives well. If you buy a home that's not built well, all of a sudden after 2 months, 3 months, 6 months, you really start noticing it, and it starts bothering you. What we also see is in a neighborhood where there are some kind of poor homes, those are the homes that turn over the fastest as well.
The which ones?
The poor ones.
The ones that don't look, that are all aesthetic.
Yeah, and that are not built well. people get tired and they move. They don't want to live there anymore.
Do a lot of people, when you start thinking about the aesthetics too, and when they turn over, as you say, people move out, that is one of those key parts, I guess, also of the process, is getting an inspector who will look deeper than just face value, I guess.
Yeah, most houses should be inspected. I mean, I've done so many inspections. I'm at every single inspection. So I'm actually kind of doing an inspection, except for the crawl space in the attic when we're in looking at the house. But people need to have that experience to really go through the house with an inspector, and he lists all the stuff down. And it's really not from the standpoint, I mean, sometimes you find some fatal flaws, I call them, that you're just going to walk away. But in the most of the time, it's really about maintenance and what should I expect to do to maintain this so it doesn't cost me a whole lot of money down the road.
But that is a big part of it. It's the money. I mean, a lot of sellers, especially nowadays, I think, are like, well, maybe the next guy will buy it because things are flying off the market. So they're maybe not as inclined to go, oh, well, let me fix the electrical panel because you don't like it. It didn't start a fire for us. So
Right. So
where else do you see people entering the market, I guess, especially like first-time home buyers? I mean, where do you see them entering in the process, or is it really all over the place?
It's all over the place. A lot of people get into it and they go to open houses and they shop online, and they're kind of the hardest ones to kind of rein in and get on the right track because they think they know a lot of stuff, and in most cases they don't. Some cases they do. Some people just have the intuition to understand what they're looking for. They don't know what they're looking for. They're looking for something that is nice looking. When they walk in, it's all clean and it's nice colors, and that's not so important. What's important is what's behind the colors.
Because the colors, I guess, can be blinding.
And you can change them real easily.
All you have to do is find about 10 friends, buy some beer and pizza, and have them come over and paint your house.
Right after before they moved in.
Before they moved in, yeah.
Again, we're here with David Bell, RE/MAX, our resident RE/MAX Hall of Famer. Dave, we have a few minutes left. So when you say you're kind of doing that inspection, do you tend to allow yourself to give more advice than maybe, I know with like an inspector, here's kind of the nuts and bolts. It's black and white. This is what's wrong. I'm not telling you to buy the house or not to. I would think that a lot of people who are entering the real estate market for the first time maybe need a little bit more of, this is not the right house or this is the right house. Maybe a little bit more assurance when they do start looking.
Yeah, they really do. And because I've done so many inspections, like I say, when I go through a house, I really point out. I mean, I'll go downstairs if you're on the west side in Seattle where they have basements. I'll go downstairs and we'll try to find, if it's a finished basement, we'll go into closets and try to find where the ceiling's open so I can show them the joist work. And I mean, you can tell right away about how a builder built the house by the size and the spacing of the joist work. And if they're on 40-inch centers and they're 2x4s, you don't buy the house. And if they're 2x8s and they're on 18-inch centers, then that's pretty good, or 2x10s. So you want to, you educate them all the way around. You educate them about power. You educate them about pipes. I mean, one of the simplest things to do is you go up to upstairs bathroom, turn the sink on, and flush the toilet. If the pressure in the sink goes way, way down, you're going to have to replace your pipes. Pipes are galvanized. And that's going to be an expense. Well, how much will that cost? Anywhere from $3,000 to $5,000, depending on how easy it is to snake stuff in. And then we always scope the sewer line, because how much could that cost? $30,000, $40,000. It could cost if you have a bad sewer line. So those are the things that you got to do. You just have to do. And people have to understand that they're going to find flaws as well, because it's a very stressful inspection for a first-time home buyer.
Yeah, I mean, as hard as it is to go into the market and get pre-approved, and then go find the real estate agents get throw you around, then find the house you love, to only maybe have, when it comes down to it, it just isn't the right house because of the structure or the sewer line, the stuff that you can't see.
Or the foundation that's it's cinder block instead of poured concrete. But see, when I see a cinder block foundation of a house, I tell my clients we're not even. I'll take them in and show them, and then I'll say the next time we're not even going to go in. We're just not going to buy a house that has a cinder block foundation.
So there's lots of keys, elements that you see that really put you in a position that you can help guide them.
Yeah.
Well, David, certainly for any home buyer out there, you fall in love with a house, but sometimes the house you love isn't.
You got to keep one foot firmly planted in reality.
Yeah. And what's your line? You have a line for that.
That was it. I just gave it to you.
And one foot on a cloud.
Well, something like that. But I have another one for you. Do you want?
Yeah, I love your one-liners.
Do we have time? Well, this is from Winston Churchill, and I read it the other day, and I love it. Success is going through failure after failure and maintaining your enthusiasm.
I love it. I have another one.
Yeah?
The successful person is not the person who is enthusiastic for 30 minutes or 30 days, but it's the person who's enthusiastic for 30 years.
30 years. There you go. There you go. There you go.
Hey, we have to go to break. David, thanks so much for sticking around. We'll be right back after this break. You're listening to Brashenomics.